You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Welcome back to Used to Sew, a podcast about sewing machines, sewing history, and sewing culture in the past and present. I am your producer and co-host, Aradia, daughter of your main host, T.R. Kelly, who is here today to talk to you about bobbins in general and two Singer sewing machines, the Touch and Sew and the Imperial. This is a wide-ranging episode that starts with the first boat shuttle-style bobbin and ends at TR quitting sewing machine retail over 100 years later. There was almost enough content here to make 2 episodes, but I know, as a podcast listener, that longer episodes are more fun than short ones. So buckle up, get some popcorn, and let us regale you with some profoundly, fiddly, nerdy stuff before getting to the long-awaited Imperial episode. TR has been asking me to play with more sound effects again, so look forward to that in the last part of the episode. We'll start off with how and why bobbins exist, move through the practical improvements and into the more gimmicky final touches, which lead us into the Singer 600 series, commonly known as the Touch and Sew. Though this machine has a checkered reputation, it has some redeeming qualities, unlike the Imperial, which was so offensive that it played a not insignificant role in TR leaving sewing machine retail. I think there's some potential for a business mystery investigation into exactly what happened there, but you let us know at the end if you have any thoughts on just what made the Imperial so catastrophically bad.
All right, folks, welcome back to Used to Sew. Happy equinox. It's either fall or spring, wherever you are on the sphere. Boy, it's that low golden light that just, up here in the northern hemisphere anyway. It's fall time and kids have gone back to school and it's time to sew. It's time to sew. And we've been doing that. Radia's been sewing. I've been working on machines. We've been making the floor dirty in the sewing room with threads and grease and bits and bobs. Tell us what you've been making, Raid.
I've been beginning my very first quilt ever. I'm doing my slam it together and see what makes sense and what works and how to use the tools and all that, just with some fabric I have that I'm not attached to, so it's very, very low stakes, but I'm learning to use the rotary cutter.
Yay.
I'm learning that a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance really matters. I did all of my very initial, triangle, half square
triangles is what you're making right now.
I did my half square triangles, the narrowest possible seam allowance, and I've learned that mistake now. But I have now made both sets of my blocks and press them all out, and I'm at the part where I get to start actually sewing the different little sub units together into a bigger block.
Yeah, to make a full block. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to make a full block, and I'm just really enjoying learning the skill and kind of getting a sense for it without like tweezing out about the fabric choice and the pattern choice. And I'm just figuring it out, like, oh, so that's why that doesn't work. Okay, anyhow.
Right.
And and then you gave me multiple books of patterns and techniques and stuff. So I'm definitely anticipating this being the winter that I really learn about quilting.
Oh my gosh. You've got a hand crank Singer 66 now. So you can sew blocks one stitch at a time with a sip of tea in between if you want to go that slow.
That's going to make me feel so comfortable when it comes time to really freak out about my points matching. Because right now, again, I'm just learning the basic mechanics of trying to make them match. But once I really give a shit, the hand crank is going to make my life so much more chill.
Oh, yeah. This is a Godzilla hand crank. It's a conversion. We talked about conversions before. And we dug this out, and I put one of those Chinese hand cranks on it, and it's missing the knob, so we put a wooden spool on there, and that's actually kind of fun. And then Mike gave us an old nondescript case base from the 50s to put it in, because a 66 is one of the machines that you can't just set it on a table. It has all these bits that hang down, so it's got to be in some kind of a case or cabinet. So got that all fired up and going, and man, I just love a 66. They're so smooth. There's so few parts inside to move. Yeah, I still say they make the best treadles. But hand crank's cool too. I'm like, you're gonna laugh. Okay, I'm gonna tell you guys. I was so enamored of hand cranking. I had trouble with my shoulder for a while, but it's getting better. And I'm like, wow, this is kind of fun. Maybe I should get a hand crank. So I went on the large auction site just to see if there was a Model 28, which is the little 3/4 size long shuttle hand crank. It was super popular. I'm going to stick with older Singer stuff now because trying to find bobbins for the Davis is proving difficult. Finding parts for those old long shuttle Singers, still plenty of them out there. You can buy the Bobbins by the dozen. Anyhow, there it was. A beautiful little Singer 28 with still got the manual tension release thing like the Davis does. So I actually put in a bid on it.
Oh, wow. Seriously?
Well, it has the real old hand crank, not that funky Chinese rattly thing that they sell to retrofit machines. This has the real original Singer hand crank with a nice long arm and the wooden knob to turn it with, and it doesn't. So I only bid, when I bid funny numbers, so 111 and 11 cents, because you might as well go to 11.
I mean, very true.
Anyway, tales of machines. Got to tweak on the Davis a little more today. You were sewing along, and all of a sudden the needle started hitting something, and I think that I just need to do a little more work on the whole oddball needle bar, take the Dremel tool to it again.
But it was very cool that a friend came to me and said, I hear you can do the thing. And I was doing the thing.
Yes.
And it was working. And then suddenly the needle was not going where it needed to go, right as I was finishing up with I was doing a pants take-in waistband dart thing. So it needed the Davis's oomph. And then right near the end, it was like, I'm trying to go through the needle plate now. And I was like, but you were just sewing fine. So, yes, clearly the aftermarket mods need a little more tweaking.
A little more tweaking. And this is going back to why do I want to, just stick to Singer machines now? Because the parts are everywhere. I'm loving the Davis, but the whole thing with having to use those industrial needles and not being able to find more bobbins. And so it's like when you want to branch off and you want to get into some more oddball kind of machines, check and see if there's parts available. I was doing some research for a future episode here on white sewing machines. Their old long shuttle bobbins are really weird. They have a little hollow tube inside the shuttle carrier. The bobbin has to thread onto that. Do you think those are easy to find? No. It's kind of like finding the spool carrier for an Eldridge 2 spool. Bobbin cases and bobbins. That leads me into my first topic today, bobbins and bobbin cases.
Clever.
Bobbins and bobbin cases. And we talked about needles a few months ago, and we've talked about motors and all the other, there's lots of little sub-assemblies of machines, but bobbins, as I was looking at various vintage machines on the auction site last night, and thinking about what kind of bobbin does that use, or the bobbins available. Somebody asked me the other day, they brought up some oddball machine, and I said, does it have a shuttle? What's that? Well, open this drawer and look in there. Is there this silver bullety looking thing? No. Then don't buy the machine. You're never going to find that. You're never going to find that. There's one lady in the UK who has a lot of oddball shuttles, Helen Howes. We'll do a thing on her at some point. And she's adamant that she will not sell you a spare. She's trying to get as many machines working as possible. So she's got some very oddball shuttles. But stick to things you can find parts for when you're looking at vintage machines. Some things can just be swapped around like crazy for, the standard 15x1 needle. By World War II, that was pretty standard. There wasn't many needles, but I was just looking at a chart of turn-of-the-century manufacturers and all the different needle sizes. Oh, my Lord. No. If you want to collect them just to look at and to have, that's one thing. But if you're getting into vintage machines, you actually want to sew on them. Does it have a bobbin case or a shuttle? And does it have at least one bobbin? Because with a lot of those old long shuttle machines, again, there's so many different lengths of bobbins, and they're not interchangeable. So it's good to have at least one known one that works. Because you go into an antique store and look at hey, let me see that little tray of metal doodads and sewing machine bits you've got there. And you want to be able to know, okay, I need the bobbin that's 1 3/8 inches long, or 3 millimeters on the cross part. You know what I'm saying? So be aware of that. Bobbins. In the beginning, the whole idea of bobbins came from weaving, right? The thing carries a thread and it throws it through another thread, the warp and the weft.
That's the shuttle in a loom situation.
Right.
That's the shuttle. It carries the thread through the work.
The shuttle holds the bobbin inside of it.
Right.
Okay, so same thing with a sewing machine, only much smaller. The first, I'm going to read, what the heck is this? This is West Virginia University Extension Family and Community Development. Wow, great information here. The first sewing machine bobbin use mimicked the bobbin and shuttle used with loom weaving. Called a boat shuttle, the bobbin was long and sat down in the shuttle body, which was shaped much like a boat. So it's kind of open. You can see the bobbin sitting in there. It's not the little cylindrical one like the Davis has. For the sewing machine, shuttles and bobbins were made of metal, of course, instead of wood as it was on looms at the time. And also, when this happened, we have what's called transverse shuttle machines. This is, you and I don't have this. The Davis, the shuttle moves in the arc back and forth as you're looking at it.
Right.
A transverse shuttle is behind the needle and it's going from right to left, exactly perpendicular to the...
Just like a loom.
Yes.
It's very, very much imitating the look and feel and motion of a loom.
Yes. I used to have a Singer Model 12. It didn't have a shuttle, but at least I could see the motion of what was supposed to happen. Yeah, I want to have a Model 12. Oops, no bobbin case. Shuttle. Bleh, whatever. Don't buy a machine if you want to sew on it if it doesn't have a shuttle. I'm going to tell you one more time.
It's an important life lesson.
Okay, so that's a transverse shuttle. Goes back and forth in a straight line behind the needle. The next variation of shuttle and bobbin is known as the bullet shuttle. A solid cylinder with a point at one end that resembles the shape of a bullet. This is what you have on the Davis, right? A lot of people call those old bullet shuttle machines. So a boat shuttle looks like a boat. You can look down and see the bobbin. A bullet shuttle, the bobbin's all the way inside. And these move in an arc from the right side of the needle. Now we've got this back and forth vibrating shuttle machines because the shuttle kind of just vibrates in its carrier and the thread goes around and catches the bobbin. These were invented by about 1850. So we're getting up to this. And again, these come in a lot of different shapes and sizes. I'm fixing a machine for a friend. The brand name is Household. And trying to find a shuttle for this was really tough. Look, I had to dig deep on some serious VictorianSweatshop.com. There's some really hardcore collectors on there. I finally got one. The final evolution of the whole bobbin concept. Okay, so now we're at the bullet shuttle, but it's still got the long, spindly bobbin in. What's the next thing? The next thing is the round bobbin. The one that you're probably more familiar with. Looks like a little donut with a hole in the middle. 1890s, Singer came up with the what we now call a Class 15 machine with a round bobbin that fit into a roundish bobbin case, and then those things clip into the shuttle. The shuttle is now the hook. It's the rotating part. That's the part that's catching the thread and dragging it around the bobbin. The bobbin's not moving now. The bobbin is sitting there.
Wow. Complete reversal of how it started as a loom. With the loom, the shuttle is doing all the motion. Well, not all, but almost all the motion. Now we're down to it sits still and spins in place while the work comes over it. Well, it doesn't really spin in place. It may spin in place or it may spin back and forth. But either way, it's stationary in space.
So now we have a bobbin, which holds the thread. It's a little spool. And it's in a bobbin case, which is a little removable piece with a tension spring and a latch. And those things come out, you hold them in your hand, and you look in the machine, and what do you see? You see the shuttle itself, which is a hook point and a driver, and it's either oscillating back and forth or it's going around and around and around. We talked about that. But the idea of a bobbin in a bobbin case, this is the next step, right? Where can we go after that? There's no bobbin case. The bobbin just drops in and you thread the thread under a tension spring. Now that's the easiest of all, right? Singer also invented that. Singer invented that with the Model 66. 66-1, which was right around 1903, I think. So now we've got top drop-in bobbin. Ultra easy. No more bobbin case to lose. You don't have to reach under the machine to click it in. One of the huge advantages of round bobbin machines over long shuttle machines. Now, they both make beautiful stitch. Not a problem with that. Long shuttle machines are inherently much louder, and they just can't go as fast because you're whipping that arm back and forth, wacka, 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 with the shuttle on it. There's some physics involved here. There's just a speed past which it cannot go. I mean, you hook it up to a motor, it's going to shake itself apart. I mean, I've seen this happen. I mean, like a washing machine motor. Just there's these YouTube channels where people like to break stuff on purpose.
Yeah, put a brick into a washer. That's fun.
Yeah, old sewing machines are really hard to break. But from a standpoint of actually using the thing, when it came time to add electricity, some people threw motors on the long shuttle machines, and my God, they're even louder now. Whack-a, 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 whack-a. The round bobbin machines are quieter, smoother, and faster. Nobody makes a long shuttle anymore.
No, I had to learn about that because you wanted to give me the Davis. You had to teach me all about the concept of a bobbin that isn't round. And I'm just like, what? But no, I'm thinking too about the noise thing. Way back when we talked about full rotary versus oscillating, you were saying that also, there's a quietness factor there. A full rotary is much quieter than an oscillating. And it makes sense. It's the same thing, right? Every time you have to stop and reverse direction, you're going to lose some energy in the form of noise. Like that's just going to happen. But you're saying if the whole shuttle is whipping back and forth, that's so much more material over so much more distance that's going to just scale the whole equation up. That totally makes sense.
Yeah, the more metal, the more grams you're flinging about in there, the less energy efficient the machine is too.
Yeah, noise is energy. That's the thing, is anytime you hear noise, that represents a certain amount of energy that could have been doing something else, being lost as vibrations to the air, which sometimes is necessary and sometimes is a sign that something is wrong or could be engineered to a different standard. Yeah.
So, and then you hinted at the rotary, which is, yes, the next step quieter.
Because then it doesn't switch back and forth at all. It just keeps going forever forward.
The hook runs in a complete circle, and it picks up the needle thread when the needle comes down, usually every second revolution. It's quieter because, again, you're not reversing dunk, 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 back and forth. It's also much more efficient, meaning you don't have to put a heavier motor on because the machine is so smooth, right?
Right.
And so now a rotary can be with a bobbin case, right? The bobbin case clicks in and the machine is rotarying around that. The 319W that I'm looking at right now is that sort. The most famous of that sort that you've probably seen in a thrift store, it says it right on the label, white rotary.
Right, which I always think rotary phone, and then my brain is very
Right.
confused.
And you know what's weird? Rotary phones don't turn all the way. They turn part way and go back. So they're actually also
Yeah.
hitting phones.
Liars. They're all liars.
The old phones from the 20s where you had to actually crank them up. Now that's a rotary.
Right?
Oh, man. Don't even, sewing machine collectors. Okay. Phone people are even weirder. Let's not even talk about phone people. So what's the obvious top of the line here is going to be a full rotary with a top drop in, right? No bobbin
Yeah.
case. Full. What did we just describe? The 201.
Right. I'm like, I know the answer. The 201. Right.
Actually, the 101 started it. The 101 was the first top drop in full rotary. Again, everybody knows about the 201, but the poor old 101's like, wait, I started it.
Eldest child syndrome. It's okay. I understand.
The 301 is a full rotary, but it's got the bobbin in the bobbin case. Now let's talk about bobbin cases. Just like shuttles, they're all different sizes for all different machines. And buying a machine without a bobbin case is risky if you don't know about bobbin cases. Now there's like a super common one. You can buy them by the handful for like $3 a piece that fit all the Japanese Class 15 machines and a lot of the old Singer Class 15 machines. Blah, 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 blah. There's other ones like buying a featherweight. The bobbin case alone, to buy an original vintage bobbin case, is $90. You can get a repro from China, but they don't fit and work. The fit and finish is just not good. A lot of times they'll look at a machine and it's a top drop-in one, and they'll look at it and they'll say, well, the bobbin case is missing. It's like, no, there's no bobbin case. I mean, there is one, but it's locked into the hook. You can take it out for cleaning, but it's not a piece that you, the customer, has to take out to put the bobbin into. Something I used to see and still do see a lot is people using the wrong bobbin, because it can, with round bobbin machines, it kind of fits.
Yeah, there's
Well-
a couple of subtle variations that you really have to like hold them up next to each other, and then it's obvious. But if you're just like going with half your brain, it's easy to mix them up.
Oh yeah. And okay, here's two that, I mean, you have a lot. You have two Class 15 machines right now that use Class 15 bobbins, Kenny and Exuberant, which is your 1591. Kenny, I mean, they have different bobbin cases. 1591 is an oscillator, Kenny's a rotary. Anyway, they both use Class 15 bobbins, and you had a whole bunch of bobbins because you've been getting them from all kinds of people, right? And so I sat down and looked at all your bobbins, and wait a minute. These aren't all the same. These ones here with only, I think, 7 holes are Bernina bobbins. Slightly different. These solid-sided ones are really old Class 15 bobbins. These are great. Exuberant's going to eat these up. All these 15-hole modern ones, let's look at those. Okay, Kenny likes those. Oop, here's one with a bent edge. Oh, here's one with a nicked edge. Oh, here's one that's rusty. Okay, now, these aren't vintage. I mean, if you have, oh my God, this is the only bobbin it's bent, you can straighten it out, and you can try that. But it's really false economy, like trying to straighten a bent needle. Bobbins are really precise little pieces of metal. So if it's got any nicks or dings, set it on a glass surface and see if both sides are nice and flat. If it's one that has flat sides. If it's a domed one, the Class 66 Singer bobbin. These are the two you're going to find in the store most often. The Class 15, the Class 66. The Class 66 will fit into a 15 bobbin case, but it won't work. It's too shallow. The thread doesn't feed off right. It doesn't work. If you put a Class 15 in Class 66, it's too tall. The thread won't even come around. It's just going to hang. So just as your needle is super important, your bobbin is super important. Now, what about plastic bobbins? Most modern machines prefer plastic bobbins. Most vintage machines prefer metal bobbins.
Like with like.
Yeah. So if you've got a plastic machine, get plastic bobbins for it. The reason being, okay, weigh one.
Right. I've had some plastic bobbins. They are weirdly light when you're used to metals.
They're very light. They're very, very light. And don't make your machine so with a mixture of metal and plastic bobbins and think that you're going to get away without not adjusting the bobbin tension, right?
Right. The tension's going to be totally different. Yeah.
Totally different. So pick one and stick to it. Now, again, modern machines often need plastic bobbins because they have little light sensor that'll make them light come on and tell you you're getting low on bobbin thread. No bobbin chicken for you.
So that reminds me of a question I had.
Wow.
Explain the holes in
Oh.
bobbins. Explain why they have those cute little holes all around the edge and why there's different numbers and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So like the first round bobbins for the 15s and the 66s, we're talking right around, 1890 something, were solid because they were all machined out of solid steel. I have a very few of these. They're awesome. They have one hole in the side, and that's to hold the thread while you're starting the wind. Then, what about if we put some holes in the side so you can see how much thread you have without taking it out? What a concept. For that function, the class 15 bobbins, the modern ones, are awesome because they've got 10, 15 holes in the side. You can easily see how much thread and what color without having to unthread it out of the case and stuff. So that was super awesome. But yeah, I just, unless you're sewing on a modern machine that specifies plastic bobbins, no. Again, all machines, just look in the catalog at all the bobbins that are still available for all kinds of machines. I have one of those Singer boot patcher machines with the big long arm that sticks out. The bobbin for that is the size of an American dime. It's tiny. It barely holds any thread at all. It holds enough thread to sew half a shoe.
Wow.
It's very tiny.
It seems inefficient.
Because you're putting big thread on it, because that's the only way they can make it small enough to get into that little area, right? On the other hand, I've got a white rotary, white rotary, was the biggest bobbin I have ever seen on a home sewing machine that wasn't an Eldridge 2-spool. This thing is the size bigger than an American quarter and quite capacious. It's just not to mention their bobbin case is super easy to thread. When I get to the white rotary episode, I will wax rhapsodic about their really awesome systems, which are nothing like Singer's. But anyway, yeah, bobbins are important. Now, here's one more tip on bobbins. If you have metal bobbins, of course you do. See that hole that goes through the middle? Have you ever cleaned that out? On machines where it goes into a bobbin case and then clicks onto a spindle, that thing's spinning fast. Not only the spindle, the bobbin, all that stuff is moving, and those are places people don't clean. So here's my call to actions is really simple. Go get a cotton swab or a chopstick with some soft fabric on it. Put a little drop of oil on it and clean out the inside of your bobbins, right? And then go to your sewing machine and the little stud where the bobbin case snaps on, and it'll be like a little end of a chopstick with a groove in the end or something like that. Put a little bit of oil on that too and make sure there's no thread and gunk wrapped up in that groove on the end that makes your bobbin case not want to latch on there. So this is not a lot of oil, not a whole drop, just a lightly moistened cotton swab. And this is so weird because my featherweight is screeching. I don't know. I told the lady to do this. She goes, I've had this machine 50 years. I never heard of that. I go, what can I say? We all learn new stuff every day.
Yeah, it's so true. You can't know everything. It's literally impossible.
Last time when we talked about the 401A and the 500A, the Slantomatics. What came after the Slantomatics and what was the next gimmick? I'll give you a hint. It's about bobbins. Ooh. Well, we had the Let's see. What Singer started innovating with their built-on motor and their top drop-in bobbin, and then they had the slant shank system, and then they had the swing needles, and then they had the O-matics with all their built-in cam stitch lever things. Well, now what can we do? Let's mess with the bobbin.
Let's go. This thing that seems like our discussion about bobbins makes me feel like this has been engineered to its optimal state. It's reached
Exactly.
peak efficiency. It's going to be like a horseshoe crab and never change again. Like, how can you innovate on this?
Yes. What could we possibly do? Okay, here's the housewife. She's sitting down at her sewing machine. She's winding a bobbin. She's picking up. She's winding a bobbin. Oh. What if she didn't have to take the bobbin out of the machine? What if it just wound right in the machine? You run out of thread, you push a button, and the machine automatically declutches and winds the bobbin. I like it, Bob. Let's tool up and build it. What are we going to call it? Let's call it auto reel. Like
Auto-reel.
R-E-E-L, like reel. Now remember, this is the era of open reel tape decks. People are used to seeing reels. The computers had the big reels.
Yeah, the big open spinny thing. That's how you know it's a cool machine, is if there's a big open spinny thing on it.
So the very first iteration of this machine was called auto reel. There aren't many of these out there. They look all different than our slant. And we're talking 1963 now. We're still space age, but we're different. Now we are a very rounded, powder silver, blue, gray, sort of Oregon in February color.
Gray on gray on gray. All right, cool.
And instead of the nested knobs that we had on our O-matics, now we've got two sliders that you have to push in and slide and latch out to get your cams. Like the O-matics, this system is very prone to getting varnished and stuck if it's not oiled regularly. The auto reel, what's the number? 600. Oh, we had the 500. Now we're at 600. Auto reel. Shortly after auto reel, which had a button over by the pillar that you pushed down and sideways, and by gosh, that little bobbin just winds. Now it's a drop-in, but it's not on the side like the 201s and all that. It's right in front of you, like the O-matics. Right there. Right in front of your boobs. You just slide the little door and you open the door, and then you push this button, and then you run the machine at a moderate speed, and it fills up. Now, it doesn't shut off by itself, though. You have to shut it off.
Wow. You don't have to take it out. You just open the door and watch. Honestly, like the advertising, the PR, the gimmick, bell, whistle, fairy dust energy is, I see it.
You see it. This feature stuck. All of the top of the line machines after that, all the Singers after that, they changed the system from we'll get to that. Okay, so auto reel. It was a big deal, auto reel. So, but that's not a good name. Touch and Sew. The new Singer, Touch and Sew.
Ah, here we go. We've been building to this story for a while.
Touch and Sew. Some people call them touch and throw, touch and swear. I have a lot of experience with these machines. When I went to work for Singer in the middle 1980s, touch and sews were 25 years old, so they were getting traded in. And there's a huge line, but it all started with that 600 auto reel and the 603. And these often had an E, 603E, 600E. They were built at the Elizabethport, New Jersey plant. Even though they are slant shank system, remember we've closed that Anderson, South Carolina plant. We're back up at Elizabethport, New Jersey, back at the old Singer factory. The touch and sews are aluminum bodied, slant shank, and the 600 and the 603, now this is important, are the last Singers with all metal gears, all metal shafts, powerful motor. They were the last all metal Singers. After that, we start getting into nylon gears. The 600 series touch and sews, like 648, 659. They started, and everyone had a slightly different thing with the cams and the stitches. You could get one with 7 built-in stitches or 10 built-in stitches or this box of cams or that box of cams. So they would just add more stuff on and change the color of the faceplate. Now, this is the 60s. Sewing machine business has peaked. And now they're doing anything they can to get some customers. We need customers.
So the peak is beginning to look like a peak rather than part of an upward slope, and that is upsetting to the business people.
Right. The Japanese are owning everybody.
Aha.
And the Europeans
Right.
are making inroads because the Europeans are innovating. The Japanese are copying and making better. Singer is kind of flailing at this point. They're down to like 40% market share. Not good. From somebody who used to be, 90% market share.
Right. The world is changing in the 60s, even for sewing machines.
All of the touch and sew stuff, the self-winding or wind-in-place bobbin, though, was truly a convenient feature. But those little flat clear bobbins with 3 white lines on the top. The top is slightly bigger than the bottom, and the bobbin unscrews. Why they unscrew them, I have no idea. I guess it's easy to take the thread off that way. These bobbins don't hold much thread. They really don't. So you don't hold much thread, but you can just rewind it right in the machine. I'd rather have my white rotary where I can sew 8 projects on one bobbin.
But they want you to have to use the feature really frequently so you feel really jazzed and obsessed with it, I guess.
You don't have to unthread the needle. I mean, the bobbin's out. Okay, you lightly hold the needle thread and you push this button, and what happens is it does something into the bobbin thing and it raises up. It's really cool to watch it do its thing. So that was the thing. Singer's like, okay. Now, none of their they always had they had a mid price, a top of the line, and then they had some budget stuff. The budget stuff never had that. They stayed with tried and true top drop-in rotary. Very few still had the class 15 underneath bobbin case kind of thing. Yeah, it was just like, let's stick with some good stuff here. So all these top drop-in, wind in place, a zillion built-in stitches. What else did they have? Oh, and then I just don't even want to get too far because this is getting out of like machines I care about. Because after the 603 and they start going plastic and they just get nah. I'll just mention one more fail though in the touch and throw series: rubber feed dogs.
What? No.
Yeah.
No.
Rubber feed dogs.
How is that supposed to work?
How is that supposed to work? Remember, we were the early 70s, mid 70s. This is the age of synthetics, which snag.
Okay.
So
Sure.
that was their idea, was this is a smooth feed dog because you're sewing evening wear and Dacron and acetate and satin. And it's the age of disco, What did we learn from our wiring episode about what happens to rubber when it gets machine oil on it?
It melts and looks stupid and ridiculous and no longer is holding its form. That can't be good for your synthetic fabrics.
It leaves big black smears all over your fabric.
Oh, yeah. No. If your fabric can't handle metal feed dogs, maybe it shouldn't be fabric. Or it needs to be hand sewn. Get your shit together.
A real quick modification came out. You can replace that with a metal one.
Yeah, I bet they fixed that real quick because good Lord.
They kept that rubber feed dog thing for quite a while until it was like, no, this is not working. And it didn't feed well because another thing, rubber gets oxidized and hard, right?
Yeah, rubber is not meant for that kind of contact. That's just not.
You think of the little feed wheels in your printer, right? Those get glazed and they won't feed the paper right.
Yeah.
Okay.
all the lint coming off into the little cracks and the oxidization. No, that was never going to work. Silly 60s people.
Yeah, it was a bad idea. So basically it's a little metal frame inside, and it was all coated with thick rubber, but there were no teeth of any sort. And to me, Singer's weak spot has always been their feed dogs. There's just not a lot of dog there. I'm looking at the 319 here, and it's different, but they copied that from FAF.
Right, well, because it makes sense, because the feed dog is inherently a little bit of a toothy, grabby thing. So the more of them you have, the more you can spread out the tension that's necessary to move the work forward, right? The fewer teeth you have, the more grabby they're going to be to move all that fabric. So, like, you got to have a lot of dog there. You need a dog pack.
Yeah, and you picture the Singer old school straight stitch machines. They've got one long feed dog down the left side and then a little short one on the right side. You try to use an even feed foot on that machine, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. I've been experimenting with even feet, and they really, even though it says, oh, this is vertical, it'll fit this machine. If it doesn't line up with the existing feed dogs, it's not going to work right. So rubber feed dogs was a touch and sew fail. There's one good thing about touch and sews. Well, there's several good things. They have a really cool buttonhole feature, automatic buttonhole feature. They kind of sound cool. They're direct drive vertical shaft motor, just like they invented on the O-Matics. There's no belts in these guys. The slant needle thing, the light's really nice. But on the 700 series touch and sews, now we've swapped the fiddly levers for some fiddly dials. We started off with chicken beak knobs and then pushable sliders, and now we've got these sort of radio tuner dials that don't work any better than the other stuff. And again, all these machines, the tops flip up so you can put cams in. They also had one more cool thing before I quit harshing on touch and sews. In addition to the awesome bobbin, they had a horizontal spool pin. You know how we've been running into trouble with cross-wound thread and vertical spool pins?
Yes, that was an interesting revelation for me.
Their spool pin was on the back of the machine, and it didn't point up. It pointed sideways. And you slid your thread on, and then you slid this big foam cap over it. And it held the thread absolutely still, the spool absolutely still, while the thread smoothly unwound. That was a really cool feature, and that went clear up into the Ultra Unlimiteds when I was selling them. So top-of-the-line Singers, horizontal spool pin, another cool feature.
Oh, neat.
So, yeah. So there's the little bit of harshing on the 60s and 70s touch and sew, because why? We had to mess with the bobbin. It's the last thing we can screw around with on this. Well, actually, it's not. They get into computers and pneumatic air electric control and other fails.
But none of that is within the sphere of our special interests, so
Okay, but now there's going to be a tale of sale story.
popcorn. Everyone get your popcorn.
Let's take you back to 1988. For the machine that I've been hinting at for a while now, the Singer Imperial. The Singer Imperial. Well, here we were. We were happily selling the Ultra Unlimited line. That was what we were selling. The 62, 33, 34, 35, 67, and 68. And then a lower priced line. But Ultra Unlimited was what we were supposed to be selling. They started at $300 for the basic.
They are.
And then it went up to $1,000 for the space shuttle. Well, a bunch of business stuff happened in Singer right around then. And all of a sudden we're getting new stuff. Well, we haven't got it yet, but they're starting to tell us in our weekly mailings, get ready for the Imperial. And it had this little gold crown with these little 5 dots on top, and it was on black, because this is at the time when black is becoming a marketing scheme. Oh, black means the black credit card, Get ready for the Singer Imperial. Are you ready to demonstrate? You need to be ready to demonstrate and sell. We have new features. We have, this is going to be great. We're going to send you, and they sent us boxes of little gold scissors and thimbles packaged in little plastic bags with a little cheesy cardboard Imperial made in China Okay, you're going to hand out these little trinkets to people who watch a full Imperial demonstration. Meaning you have to get through the whole demo pack, but you're talking, you're going to set somebody down for 15 minutes here before you give them their little cheesy scissors and thimble. That the gold plate is already starting to wear off, right?
That doesn't matter. It's all about swag.
I'm smelling a disaster here because they're not telling us what the new features are. They're not even showing us a picture of the machine. They're just showing us the logo. This crown with the dots, the singer.
Oh, logo and hype is definitely smelling of bullshit. Okay.
Plus, they've changed our commission structure, and also now we can no longer take trade-ins. This was the beginning of the end for me. No longer take trade-ins? That's the whole reason I stick around this shithole.
Seriously.
That's how I learned about the Slant-O-Matic and the Touch and Swear and all the other great machines. And what's this Singer Imperial?
It's like literally imperializing your little corner of the hobby world. This is like so meta.
I looked and looked for information on this, and all I found was some sad pictures of these machines that are now in auction houses and not going anywhere. They're horrible. Anyway, I didn't want to spoil there, but you know how plastic turns yellow when it gets old? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
No, okay, so here it is. Here comes the UPS truck. Here's my boss, because I'm the biggest store in our division. So he's going to greet the Imperial at my store. I'm just going to call him Mr. Suit. He was a complete sexist asshole. Anyway, here comes the UPS truck. Here it comes. They're unloading the boxes. Okay, they look just like the other boxes that we get. Sewing machine shaped, Singer, but they have this cheesy logo on them. Okay. Open one up. Oh my God, you're shitting me. This thing, it's the same machine we've been selling, the Ultra Unlimited, but it's got a new trim package. It's got the most cheapest gold plastic trim, knobs, everything's gold, but it looks horrible. It's like the Barbie Dream House would look much better finished than this. And here's the new feature. Here's the new feature, the Singer Imperial. The only sewing machine with a built-in clock.
Womp, womp, womp.
We're talking one of them little barely see it black on gray kids wristwatch kind of clocks.
Oh my God, no.
And it's stuck right to the machine, right in the front, with a cheesy plastic bezel, little golden plastic bezel with this, and it's got the two little buttons, like a little kid's wristwatch does. And this is 1989. This is cutting edge, right?
How, you're going to demonstrate this new sewing feature of having a clock? Oh.
All of the stitches are exactly the same. Everything is the same as the 62, 33, 34, 35, 67, 68. What are we doing? It's the only sewing machine with a built-in clock. Make sure you demonstrate the clock, how easy it is to set. And I said, Mr. Suit, when we're in our sewing room, we don't give a fuck about what time it is.
Like, literally, that's the whole point. Oh, my God.
He says, all right, I want to see you demonstrate the machine. Point out the features. Oh, fuck. So I went out and found a customer. Hi, would you like a little pack of cheap Chinese trinkets if I make you sit through a demonstration of the most boring damn sewing machine that is ugly? It's horrible. No, Mrs. Customer, would you like to come and see? I did the demo. The customer's like, why the hell would I want a clock? Right where he could hear her.
Boom. Give that woman a mic just so she can drop it.
I quit 3 months after that. Really, I couldn't take it anymore. I just couldn't.
The beginning of the end.
That was it. That was it. And then after I quit, they closed the sewing machine department. That store was out of business. I mean, the whole chain. It wasn't because I quit. Ooh. It was falling apart.
But you were part of the falling apart. Like, you were a load-bearing beam that failed as part of the larger structural collapse. Oh,
Not only this, okay, now they've taken away all my Ultra Unlimiteds, which I actually kind of liked. They were decent. They brought in these things, which even if they were Ultra Unlimiteds inside, they look horrible. And not only that, now when machines would come, you get a new batch of machines every month, and I would take each one out of the box and test it and repackage it, and you would never know it had ever been sewn on. But I tested every brand new machine that came in. Half of those Imperials didn't work.
which was a much higher failure rate than prior. Prior, it had been like 1 in...
Before, I had maybe like 1 out of 20 that needed something done to it, and this was like 12 out of 20.
That's so bad. Oh, that stinks.
And we're talking stuff like timing, stuff like there's no light bulb. I mean, it wasn't even the same mistake every time. So I don't know what was going on with those machines, but it's really funny that I cannot find anything online about the Imperial debacle. I'm going to keep looking.
Really?
I find a few. I'm going to send you a picture of one to show you just how butt ugly they are. That was the most, I mean, we've gone from top drop-in bobbins and self-winding bobbins and potted motors and a built-in clock.
Wow, how the mighty have fallen.
How have we fallen? So, yeah, that's kind of a whack way to end. I'm trying to think of the last trade-in I sold. I think it was one of the last good machines Singer made. It was at the bottom of the budget line. It was the 237 Fashion Mate. What the hell? It's all metal, straight, zigzag, heavy as hell, flatbed. No bells, no whistles. This is for the lady whose 1591 finally died, and she doesn't want to get rid of her cabinet. These new Freearm machines don't go in those old cabinets. You want to be able to sell them a nice old flatbed, folds up on the hinges. 237. Man, what a great machine. People, and here's the beautiful part, external hand wheel, you can make it into a treadle.
Nice.
I used to sell these. They would come in and I'd say, oh my God, a 237. This is weird. And they're heavy because they're still cast iron. They're white, but they're cast iron. Little plastic top on it. That's the last good machine Singer made. It was in like 1967.
Wow. And we're still managing to handle them and sell them into the late 80s. They still were kicking around.
I'd get a few trade-ins. Yeah. And they had a model that they would sell new then called the 247, which externally looked similar, but it had a plastic drive belt for the timing. But the 237s, now I'm going to keep an eye out for those because I was just like, what's really the last good machine Singer made that wasn't hyped? That was just a basic straight and zigzag. One that they made for their developing world market, let's say. Where
Right.
electricity's not always there. So I think they were made in Brazil, of all places. We'll get to that when we talk about Singer's factory system. Singer, the first globalist, the first capitalist. Not the first capitalist, one of the most successful capitalists, one of the robber barons of the Gilded Age. And he wound up with a built-in clock. We'll see you next time for more sewing machine weirdness here at Used to Sew. I don't know what we'll get to next time, but it'll be all metal. Thanks. Stay threaded.
Auto reel.
And there you have it, a deep dive on bobbins that led into the end of Singer putting out acceptable sewing machines. We talked about bullet bobbins, plastic versus metal, why there are little holes in the sides, and auto-winding functions. The Singer Touch and Sew had a rocky time, but wasn't all bad, unlike its successor, the Imperial, which simply sucked and was, in hindsight, a sign of the collapse that was ripping through the sewing machine industry at the close of the 80s. Among all the nonsense that is mid to late century American capitalism, the most egregious move in this story, to me, was the banning of trade-in sales that TR described. All the little corner cuts, the nylon gears, and the rubber feed dogs, and auto-winding plastic bobbins, all of that was manageable as long as the old machines were still there to take up the slack. But once you actually cut off access to the older, better stuff, once you penalize, reduce, and reuse, that's an inflection point in the larger culture. At least, that's how I see it. As a reminder, we are unofficially sponsored by Stagecoach Road Vintage Sewing Machine, who do repairs and restorations on older machines only. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and you can support us by sharing the podcast with your friends, and also with money, at patreon.com/used2sew. Thank you for listening to us here at Used to Sew. We always welcome your additions, corrections, and feedback in general. Please reach out to us via email at usedtosew@gmail.com. Used to Sew is a production of Fox and Raven Media. For more podcasts from Fox and Raven Media, visit our website at foxandravenmedia.com. Auto reel.